Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I want to do is talk about the Bash terminal. So this is one of the most important things you can learn if you plan on being a developer overall, because regardless of whether you're doing any kind of particular development, working with any particular programming language, there's really two things that you're always going to be using a lot: the terminal, the command line, and Git and GitHub, which I have other videos on. Okay, so bottom line is this is a video just to kind of get you familiar with the terminal. Now, the terminal, in this case, again, I'm on a Linux operating system, just so in case you didn't notice, I'm on a Linux operating system. I'm specifically on Pop! OS, but it really doesn't matter what Linux operating system you're on. Just to give you a little background, Linux and Mac are both based on another operating system called Unix. So technically, the operating system, its very core is the same, which is why generally when it comes to the terminal, the way we take text commands to tell the computer how to do things are going to be the same between both. If you're on Windows, Windows is not based on Unix, so its command prompt and PowerShell are different. I do not recommend using that for this tutorial. What I do recommend is downloading something called Git Bash. Okay, so you would just look up Git Bash for Windows, and this will give you the ability to use Git and be able to use the Bash terminal from Windows. But just because Git, you'll have Bash and Git, does not necessarily mean that the file system suddenly works the same way. So keep in mind that there are differences between the Windows file system and the Unix file systems that are used on Linux and Mac. But otherwise, this should kind of allow us to do what we're going to do today, regardless of what operating system you're on. Okay, if you're on Mac, just notice that it doesn't say Bash, it says ZSH, Zush. It's the same thing. Okay, just to keep it short and sweet, won't get into the history of the differences between Zush and Bash, because really they are the same thing. They're going to have the same commands. For our purposes, they'll accomplish the same goal. Okay, but that is this. So basically what you want to do is on Mac, you're going to open up what's called a program called Terminal. On Linux, you're going to open up whatever terminal emulator your particular operating system has, because different Linux operating systems will have different terminal emulators. And then if you're on Windows, you'll be opening up Git Bash. But basically what we can do from this terminal is just send commands to our computer, and the computer does what we tell it to do. Okay, so for example, when you're in terminal, you're essentially exploring your computer. So you have to imagine that your computer is currently, your terminal instance is currently in a particular folder in your file system. So if you're not familiar with most computers, they generally keep track of everything in folders and files. That's how everything is organized. So you have folders and folders, and then files in those folders, and then more folders in those folders, and so forth. Okay, so if you're explored like My Computer or the Finder on Mac, you get the idea. There's files that are in folders, and everything is files and folders. So if you're wondering what folder you're in currently, you type in PWD. That stands for Print Working Directory. Okay, and keep in mind this may look different depending on what computer and what software you're using. So your terminal will probably very much likely not look like mine. Okay, but this little thing here that kind of is right before your cursor, like right here I can type in, that's referred to as your prompt. That is customizable. Mine is very customized. I use a program called starship.rs to customize my prompt, in case you're interested. If you're on Mac, there's a program called Oh My Zush that might be an even quicker and easier route to customize your prompt. But bottom line is the prompt is just the thing that kind of gives you an idea of what you're doing in the command line. So when I see my prompt looks like this, I know that I'm currently in Bash. Okay, so I'm in the Bash program because there's other programs I can open up from the command line and they'll have a different prompt. And also tells me other things. So because I'm in the main home folder, so since my user is Alex Merced, that's me, what happens is on Linux, each user gets a folder in the home folder. So generally that's going to be your home folder when you're logged in under that user. I think in Mac it's like user / the username. And then on Windows, it's like C users, the username. Okay? And then that's going to be considered your home folder, which is referred to as the tilde. So this tilde here always represents the home folder. So if I were to do CD, which stands for change directories, which means I want to change which folder I'm in, I did cd tilde, it would take me back to whatever my home directory is for that particular operating system. So if you ever wonder what that is, just make sure you're in the tilde folder. So you see I'm currently in home, and then just type in pwd, and now I know what my home folder is. Now you can always, like as you can see here, I can see all my previous commands, and that gets kind of old. You can always just type in clear and clear all that out. Okay, now if I'm wondering what files and folders are in the folder that I'm currently in, okay, because again I can't visually see where I'm at, so I can see what folder I'm in with pwd, but if I want to see what's inside the folder I'm currently in, I can type in ls, which is like list. Okay, and see it lists all the folders and files. Again, how color-coded your screen maybe will differ depending on your system. Now the problem is this does not show me all the details of these files and folders. So if I wanted more details, I could do -L. This is going to give me like the long version of the list. Okay, so see, this gives me a lot more detail about like how big the files are, when they were created, all sorts of cool stuff. Now, this still doesn't show me hidden files. Hidden files are generally files that start with a dot in their name. And that convention allows operating systems to know, like, don't show those files, because the chances are they're like system or configuration files that we don't want your average user playing with. But as a developer, we may need to play with those files. So I want to see that they exist. So I can type in ls-la. So that's going to be, A means all files, including hidden files. L, again, long. So we see the long output. And this will show me all the files with, including the hidden files, the ones that start with a dot. Okay. Now, I think on Linux, any Linux operating system, you can type in double L's. It might be just Ubuntu-based ones, but if you type in double L's, it's a shortcut for the LA. So I could either type in ls-la on any operating system. I think on Linux you can do this double L, and that's just a quicker way of doing that. Okay, so let's clear the screen. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a folder. So what you can do is you can make folders by typing in make dir. That means make directory, and this is going to create a new folder. Okay, just to show you, right now I don't have a folder called bash practice. So you see, you don't see a folder called bash practice. It doesn't exist right now. Okay, so now I'm going to do make dir bash practice. And now if I do ls, we can see now the bash practice folder exists. Good, I created it. And actually if I open up my visual file explorer, I can see that it got created. So it's right there, bash practice. Okay. Now I want to travel and work inside that folder. So the change directories, again, it's cd. So, and everything's always relative to where you are currently. So right now I can cd to any folders that are in this current directory. So I can be like cd bash files. But I can't cd into a folder that's not in this folder. I mean, you can, but to keep it simple, I'm going to cd into this folder. And if I want to go up a folder, like I want to go to the parent folder of where I'm at now, so the parent folder of my home folder, I can do cd ... and that always goes up a folder. So just to kind of give you an idea there, dot always means the current folder, which this would do nothing, because why would you want to change to the current folder? 2 dots always means the folder above, and tilde always means the home folder. Okay, so those are generally some like pseudonyms for certain folders, so you know. So I want to change into bash files. I mean bash practice. Okay, so see now my prompt has changed, because see my prompt's going to guide me on where I'm at. Okay, so see my prompt is telling me now I'm in the bash practice folder. This is from Starship just telling me that I'm logged into AWS, so that's not necessarily important for this particular exercise, so you can ignore that. Okay, so I can cd the folder. Now, again, I can make more folders. I could also make files, so I can type in touch. Touch means create a file. So I can just type in the name of the file I want to create. So we'll say, hey, words.txt. Okay. So now if I do an ls, now that I'm in the bash practice folder, I can see that in that folder I created a words.txt file. And again, if I open up my visual file explorer, I'll go into bash practice and see in there's now a words.txt file. Just so you can kind of see this side by side. Now if I do another one, touch letters.txt, see, it got created. I'm creating files. Okay. So literally all you're doing is interacting with your computer through this terminal, but it gives you a lot more flexibility and you can get a lot of things done a lot quicker versus clicking around. Like the visual abstraction can be nice, but one reason why it's really important for us developers to know this is because especially if you're working with web applications, you're going to have like a web server, on like Amazon or something. And generally those server computers, they're running Linux, but they aren't running Linux with a graphical user interface. They're running as servers, and servers generally don't have a graphical interface, so that way they're not using those computer resources to have the visual. Because most people aren't visually interacting with a website. It's like, basically what's happening is that a request is being sent, and then you're sending back the website, and the website's opening on the user's computer. So really, you don't need a visual interface on a server computer. So the way you interact with it is through a command line like this. So if you don't understand how to use a command line, interacting with those servers can be really difficult. Okay, so which is why this is important to learn. Okay, so I can create the files. Now other cool things I can do is I can print text. So this is nothing really too exciting. I can type in like echo, and I can say hello world. And all this means is that I'm going to say hello world. So literally what it'll do right afterwards is print the words hello world. That's not particularly useful. What is useful is being able to print text and then pipe it into a file. So what I can do is I can type in like echo hello world. Okay, and then what I can do is I can use this caret, and what this will do is send it to the file I have on the other side. So I'll say, hey, send it to words.txt. And if the file doesn't exist, it'll create it. Okay, so the file doesn't have to exist yet. Okay, so I'm going to say, hey, take this command, take the output from this command and save it in this file. And with one caret, it's going to overwrite the file. So whatever's in the file is going to get erased and replaced with the output from this command, which is just, as you saw, hello world. So if I hit enter, okay, now I open this file. So let's open with a text editor. Okay, and you see, all that's in this file is the words hello world. Okay, not super exciting, but there are going to be some times where that can be really, really, really useful. And if I do it with two, so if I do that again, echo hello world, but I do two carets, instead of erasing the file and then injecting the text, it injects the text at the end of what's currently there. So if I do words.txt with two carets, now I should see hello world twice. And see, that's what we see. So one caret rewrites the file, two carets appends to the file. Okay, that can be really useful. The reason, especially when it comes to configuring your terminal. Okay, because what happens is that there's going to be a lot of times where you need certain commands to run. Okay, so for example, I can run commands like git. So I can type in like git version to see what version of git. I can see, hey, like, what version of Ruby I have installed. Okay, I can see what version of Python dash version. Okay, how does it know that I have access to these commands? It's not magic. What happens is that there's a variable called the path. Okay, the path is a variable that exists on all operating systems, but it's a bunch of folders in which the terminal will look at to find. So if I type in, Python, it's going to look for a Python executable. So it's going to look for an executable file called Python and be like, okay, that is the thing that this command, that should tell me how this command works. Okay, it's going to look in a bunch of folders determined by the path. It'll just literally go through the different folders listed in this path variable and see, hey, does any of these folders have this Python executable? So what I can do is if I want to see what my path currently is, I can always do echo, and then I'll do $PATH. Anytime I want to specify a variable, I use the $. So that way it knows I'm trying to say, hey, I want you to print this variable. And there's plenty of variables that exist. This is one of those variables that are just built in always in the terminal. And see, there's my path. My path is pretty long. I got a lot of stuff installed. So basically, anytime I type in like a command like Python or Ruby, it's going to go loop through each of these folders and keep looking through all these folders till it finds the place where that thing is, so it can run that command. Okay, so this is like Python right off the bat. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Okay, that's my path. Now the thing is, the way you add to the path, there's a couple different ways, but one way typically that you're going to add So when you install a program, usually the program itself will add itself to the path, so you don't have to worry about that. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes, so you know, you'll have installed something, but you'll see something like you'll get an error. So if I type in like cheese, there's no command called cheese. See, I get this error that says command not found, meaning it looked through all these folders and found no executable called cheese. Okay, it just is like, okay, I don't know how to handle this command. Okay, so sometimes you installed something and you're like, why am I getting this command not found? It's probably because the variable is not in your path, which generally is going to be one of two issues. One, you should probably restart your terminal because the path won't be updated on the current terminal. You want to close it and reopen it. So that way it goes back and pulls a new path. But it's also possible it just never added itself. Generally the way you add itself, or you would add it, so I'd go back to your home folder. In your home folder, if you do the ls-la, you'll see this full file in here called bashrc. Okay, bashrc. Right here. Sometimes it's bash profile, but my experience is typically bashrc. Okay, so these are bash, I think it's like something configurations. That's the file you want to edit. Okay, so you would want to edit that file. You could open it up in like a text editor. You know, I could open it up in Visual Studio Code. So I could do something like this. I could do like code. If you have the code command working, I could be like code.bashrc. Open up that file. And okay, it's opened up over here. So it's opening. Okay, and so this is the file. And what it is, it's basically this file always will run every time you open up the terminal. So generally, if you want to customize terminal, this is where you would put those customizations, because this will run every time the terminal opens. Okay, you can ignore most of it, but again, this is where you see, like right here, I'm updating my path. So here I have like little commands that update my path that I've added. Okay, so you can put any kind of bash commands you want here to customize your bash. So for example, let's say I did want to create a command called cheese. You can use what's called an alias. So I can be like, okay, alias cheese. Okay, and then I write equals, and then I write in quotation marks some sort of command. So we'll say like, you know, echo cheese. Okay, so now if I do this, okay, and I save this, so I'll save. Okay, now if I do this right now, cheese, see, command's still not found. But if I start a new terminal, so usually you can like start like a new terminal on a new tab. This terminal has opened it up, and I think I did that wrong. Let me think about that. Alias cheese equals not found. Yeah, no, I think I did the wrong syntax. See, it says echo cheese not found. Let's see if I remember. Alias cheese. Oh, let's just do a quick search. Bash alias. Oh no, I know what I did wrong. There shouldn't be any spaces here. There we go. Save that. Okay, let me just restart that terminal again. So let me close this one. So I'm using Tilex. Again, your terminal program might be a little bit different as far as how it maneuvers, but the commands are the same. So again, I'm going to create a new terminal. Yep, that looks better. And see, now if I type in cheese, the cheese command exists because I said, hey, there's an alias called cheese, and whenever I run cheese, do this, echo cheese. Okay? But again, back in this terminal, it still doesn't exist. Because again, when this terminal first started, the bashrc didn't have that line in there. Okay, and it doesn't just automatically run it again. It only runs when you create a new terminal. So changes to your bashrc won't be reflected till the next time you open terminal. Okay? So that's how you can create like little shortcuts. Like, you know, sometimes you might have a long command that you do a lot and you don't want to have to be typing it over and over again. Creating aliases are a good way, and then you can create like little shortcut commands. What I would do is I would try to find some sort of prefix, so that way you don't accidentally name something the name of something some other program might use. So I might like give this like my first name abbreviation, say like AM cheese, because then I know like no other program is probably going to have a command with that name, with that prefix, and that'll make it, you know, so I don't have problems with other programs later on. Okay, so let me save that, get rid of that. Cool. Okay, so we've seen that you can make folders, you can make files, you can change folders, and there's a lot more you can do with Bash or terminal. Okay, so I definitely recommend, like going in, like Googling, like Bash commands. Okay, and a cool thing you can do is that in Bash, you can always type in, if there's a command that you want to learn more about, like let's say I totally forgot, like there's all sorts of stuff you can do with each command. So if I'm not sure what to do with like CD, I can type in, I'm pretty sure if I can type in like man stands for manual, and I can do man CD, and that'll give me the manual for that particular command. Okay. Oh, there's no manual for CD. Let me try manual echo. Okay, and see, it gives me all the details on echo. Okay, so like if there's any flags I can pass to echo and what I can do with it and whatnot. And once I'm done with this, I can just push the Q button and I'm good there. Cool. Now notice I edited the bash RC before with like VS Code. There are oftentimes editors built into terminal. One that's usually always there is nano. So nano, the command would just be nano. So if I wanted to edit bash RC with nano, I just type in nano.bashrc, and see, this opens it up. And see, now my screen has changed because I'm now no longer in terminal or in bash, I'm now in nano. And here I can actually edit the file, but again, no mouse in terminal world. It's all keystrokes, so I'm using my arrow to move around. Okay, it's the same file, and I can edit it here, and then once I'm done, I can just do Control X to quit out. Okay, another editor that's in there is Vim, which should definitely be there on a Mac and Linux systems. Yeah, it should generally be there. I think by default, this is going to be the main terminal editor on a Mac. So Vim, if I type in vim.bashrc, so I'm saying, hey, I want to edit this file in Vim. See, it opens it up, and now I'm no longer in, this is not nano, this is Vim. So notice it looks a little bit different. Okay, and Vim is also another popular tool that people use for editing files. So I could edit files directly in terminal. I don't always have to. That's really useful, and again, when you're using a server and you don't have Visual Studio Code available, and you need to make quick edits to the files to be able to. But now for this, what you would do to quit here, you need to do colon. Colon always means like run the command. I would do W for writing, and then Q for quitting. So that's going to write the file and quit. So colon means, hey, I want to do a command, write and quit. So Vim, the command's a little bit harder to remember. But as long as you know, like, hey, I'm probably either going to be in Vim or Nano, you can always just like Google what the commands are to get out of it. And the reason why that's important is oftentimes when you use Git, you'll find yourself accidentally in Nano or Vim. And people are always like, oh no, how did I get out of this? As long as you know where you are, you can get out of it. Oh, it's Nano. Let me go look up the command to quit out of Nano. Oh, it's Vim. Let me look up the command to quit out of Vim. Cool. And then other useful things, again, if I just type in man by itself, okay, so I can type in like man, so manual on manual. So this will give me like a tour of how to use manual. Okay, which again is a good way to help learn how to use the commands that are built into terminal. Now, for any command for something you installed, so for example, Python. Okay, Python doesn't come out of the gate in terminal. It's something that gets added because I installed Python. Usually, what you can do is you can do like a -- help flag. Okay, there's flags that are pretty universal between most programs. So I do -- help. See, I get some documentation on Python, and it'll give me some information that I can read here. And oftentimes, you can go even deeper, where I can do like Python, we'll say -m -- like, well, let me think of another example. You have a command that a subcommand you want to learn more about. So if I were to type in like Rails -- help, so this is going to give me documentation on Ruby on Rails. But if I typed in like Rails Rails serve and then do -- help, it'll give me the documentation on that command, and then I can read more there. Okay, the other really useful flag that's almost always on every program is version. So again, I can type in like Ruby -- version. So any of these double dashes are called flags. Okay, -version, Rails -- version. There are going to be exceptions. So for example, like Go, which is another programming language, Their version, they don't use the double dashes, so I have to like do go version. But I would say the vast majority for like help and version are going to be the do dashes, because it's just the convention. There's going to be the occasional program that decides to break convention. But you guys get the idea. So play around, make some files, make some folders, try some of the things that we discussed in this video. But my name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.